The Chinese Arsenal 66 Type 56, let's check it out. Never forget walking into a local gun shop back in the mid-'80s and seeing an AK-47 for $300. I really didn't even think it was real. I just thought that is really cool that you can buy an AK-47. Guys, really back in the early 70s, mid-'80s, there wasn't a lot of interest in modern sporting rifles because of the price mainly. You know, your AR-15 was still $600 or $700, and of course all the other rifles that fall into that category. But when China started sending their AKs and their SKSs for around $59, it began to develop a demand. They said, hey, I can spend $300 on a cool AK-47 and, you know, take it out to the range and have some fun. And then once they did, they said, well, this is so much fun, I think I will buy an AR-15. And the story goes that there was a demand created. It was an appetite. And it started with the Chinese inexpensive AK-47s. Now, these inexpensive AK-47s, the price belied the quality. China has always had a really well-developed firearm industry. Now, one of the reasons why, though, the Chinese AK-47 was so reasonable was that the manufacturing facilities in China wanted to keep up their production. They didn't want to lay off people. They didn't want to get rid of it. They wanted to keep that at a good pace. And so they introduced these rifles into the United States just to keep the Chinese workers going. And so that's one of the reasons. Now, there's a number of different types. There were the stamped receivers, there were the Norincos, the Mac 90s, and they were fairly inexpensive. But then you had more of your Legends and your Polytechs that were milled receivers that would bring more of a premium price. But then we started having a couple of mass shootings, starting in Stockton, California at a school, using an AK-47. And so the government kind of stepped in and said, we need to ban these type of rifles from importation. Because of that, that really started the move toward an appetite for these rifles. And since that time, as government steps in and makes the public known that these firearms are actually available, is what drove the demand up. And now we have a passion for these firearms because they are the ultimate tool to preserve the Second Amendment. And so it was really a funny effect that it would happen that way. And it's one of the reasons why when I see a Chinese AK-47, it just is a soft spot for me. I love it. In fact, my very first AK-47 was a Chinese Norinco in 223. And I love that rifle. It was very inexpensive. I was able to, to get it. Today's prices for Chinese rifles are extremely high. And that's because they just haven't been able to be imported since 1994. Even parts kits, doesn't matter. I mean, they're just not available. One of the things, though, that happens is if Chinese parts kits are in another neutral country for an extended period of time, they actually are imported as from that country. So James River Armory and Classic Firearms found a lot of Chinese AK-47s, Arsenal 66, Type 56, and they were able to import the parts kits into the United States. This is something that's fairly rare, and it's something that just happened. There was a lot of hoops that had to be jumped through. The rifles had to be demilled. They were select fire rifles, and of course the new rifles have American receivers, American barrels, and US made triggers, which makes them 922R compliant, which makes them allowed to be formed into a rifle and used here in the US. These are really nice quality. The Arsenal 66, is it puts out really quality firearms. Type 56 is what all AK-47s in China are listed as because they were introduced into the military in 1956. But so is the SKS. It's also a Type 56. These are underfolders. They have a 16.5-inch barrel. The parts are really in great shape. These are in unfired condition. And guys, again, these surplus firearms, they will only go up in value. And I really want to thank Ben at Classic Firearms for sending the AK for this test and evaluation. Guys, I love AK rifles. I love the history behind them. Of course, these were designed by Mikhail Kalashnikov. And, you know, from that time, there have been over 100 million AK-47s made. It's a very simple, crude, and yet very durable rifle. You know, it's just world-renowned. First thing we're going to do is make sure the gun is unloaded. So we're going to remove the magazine, check the chamber. The gun is empty. It does come with a 30-round magazine. It is steel. I believe these are made in Croatia. I've seen some of them. But one of the things about this rifle, to import or to have a military-style rifle that's been imported, there's a number of parts that have to be changed for you to use a 30-round magazine or folding stock, things like that. And one of them is the barrel, the receiver, and then the trigger group has all been changed. So that's 922R compliant, so you can do pretty much anything with this, put different stocks on it, things like that. Now, one of the big things about this parts kit alone is that it does have the underfolding stock. And they did use some of the side folding stocks as well. Typically, with the underfolders, they do not have the spike bayonet. Now, to deploy your stock, there's a button right here, it's checkered. Just press it in, and then the stock just comes all the way around. You'll notice that it did go over the 30-round magazine. We can bring down the stock, and then we're ready to go. If you want to bring the stock back, press. You want to straighten out the stock. Then it closes down right here, fits right under the handguard. If you ever shot a rifle with a wire stock on it, you know, they're not super comfortable, but when you put this against your shoulder, you don't necessarily rest your cheek on the stock itself. And it's curved enough to where it really kind of gets your sights lined up. But I really like it because it's super compact. But again, guys, one of the big things about this rifle in itself is the parts. With these kind of parts kits, they're very difficult to find. And again, they've been banned, you know, since the mid-90s. Now, according to James River Armory, they tried to make this as close to the original as they could. Now, it doesn't specify where this parts kit came from. There's a number of different countries that it could come from. There's some that think it may have come from Albania. There's other nations that deal with China, especially around the Pacific. So we don't really know, but they were kept in climate-controlled temperatures. And they were there long enough, again, to be timed out. And that's what allows these parts to be imported, according to U.S. importation laws. And guys, that's what really makes this rifle special. Because of the Chinese parts, they're just going to be a super limited supply. No, this is not an original, and with collectors, you know, you may have not been able to get a hold of a Chinese AK or pay the price for it. And so this could be a nice surrogate. But for me, having a history with this whole type rifle and when they were banned, that's really what makes this one special. And now the receivers are US made. They're 1.5 millimeter, which is a little thicker than a lot of your AKs. So it's a nice, thick, solid receiver. You do have your Type 56 James River Armory, Burgall, North Carolina, and the serial number. There are some that were saying that these should be dimpled, but there were a lot of early model Type 56s that did not have the dimple. So, you know, it's according to what rifles they were demilling. They may have had this dimple, they may not have. That may be important to you, but this does not have it, and it would be on the other side as well. Now, one thing this does retain is your full automatic notch and your semi-automatic notch. And of course, this does have semi-automatic parts, but it's kind of cool. You can bring it down to the full auto and then down to the semi-auto, and it will fire on both. And of course, safe is all the way up. Nice fit and finish. I did look over the rivets. They look like they're well done. The finish itself, I know some of the purists have said that, you know, this should be blued. It's more of kind of a black oxide finish or a black nitride finish because it has a very smooth feel to it. But you can see the rivets. They seem to be very well fit. Now, if you are a builder or if you are an AK aficionado, you know, you can look and see how they are. You know, sometimes people can get really particular. And so I wanted to really kind of show the rifle as it was to see if this is something that you want to buy. One thing too is the sight tower. It's really well done. It is in line. Also, the gas tube was in line, and the front sight. And so I really like that. Sometimes on some of the rifles you find, especially parts kits, they can be a little bit off. But it also has the Chinese markings on the selector switch, which James River Armory actually replicated that. Then also here on the trunnion, we have Arsenal 66 stamp marks and 56 for Type 56, and of course the serial number. And we have a sling adapter right here connected to the underfolding stock, and then another ring for your sling here. It does retain the cleaning rod, which you can just pull down and pull out. There is no bayonet lug or anything on here. I know that from what I understand, some of the underfolders did not have the fixed bayonet, and because this stock, which is original Chinese wood, does not have the groove right here. Now, one thing too about these stocks is that these are original Chinese, and while these are unissued rifles, some of the storage, wherever they were putting them, they have some dings here and there, but not too bad. Even here on the pistol grip, they just seem to be in really good shape. Here we have the sight tower with a post, and of course it's hooded. Now this is a barrel nut at the front, which a lot of the Chinese rifles did not have any kind of compensator or muzzle brake. But this is 14.1mm left-hand thread, so you can replace this if you'd like, or you can stick with the traditional. One thing about this barrel is that it is chrome lined, which is in tradition with Chinese military. But again, it is a US made barrel. It is a little thicker. It's a medium profile barrel, which should give you a little better accuracy and stability. And you can see the chrome lining coming right here at the muzzle of the barrel. I'm going to be shooting some Wool Performance 123 grain ammunition. And got these steel magazines. Not really sure how this Chinese rifle is going to like this Russian ammunition, but we'll find out. Now at the range, the smooth action is just really nice on this rifle. I mean, the trigger, Tapco G2 trigger, no trigger slap. It was just a very nice squeeze on the trigger. You've got your underfolder, and again, at first, that little depression is a little tight. But again, these are brand new rifles. One of the things about an underfolder is the way you shoot it. You don't really put your cheek on the metal. You just kind of rest your chin, and then you look down the sights. The way the buttstock kind of comes down at an angle, it just puts it in that right spot. These are not as comfortable to shoot as a wood stock, obviously, but this is made for a special purpose. It's made to be very compact, and so you give a little to have something different. It goes right over the magazine as we've shown, so and then it locks into place once you set it up. It just handled very well, even with just the barrel nut. The recoil on it was fairly mild. Again, you can put a compensator on there, being 14x1 left-hand threads, which is typical for your AK. But a very beautiful finished rifle, smooth shooting, very reliable. We had no malfunctions whatsoever. It's your typical AK, but if you've never went out and shot an AK, I definitely highly recommend it. I mean, they're just a lot of fun. There's a lot of modern parts that you can upgrade with standard AKs. I would not do that with this rifle because it is a special type rifle with the Chinese parts, and it makes this really a different type firearm. So a lot of fun at the range, but so are all AKs. Now we're going to take a look at the inside. Very well finished dust cover. Have a recoil spring, guide rod, bolt carrier assembly. Pull it right out, and we'll remove our bolt. Now we have our Tapco G2 trigger. This is the non-slap version. It's a very smooth trigger. In fact, the trigger is excellent on here. As far as it's not heavy, there's not any creep. In fact, it fires pretty easily and smooth. Here we have the barrel trunnion, and you see the chamber. And then, just seeing the parts, I mean, they're well finished. And James River Armory does a great job, I know, on their M14s. And to me, this is no exception. This is pretty tight. Go ahead and bring this up and around our lever. very tight. Take our gas tube and we can just pull it right off. Bring this lever up. Move this a little forward. Of course, I'm doing this without pulling out my cleaning rod. I'm not used to it anymore. And then the handguard comes right off. This is the traditional wood for the Chinese. It's got that kind of an orange color to it. But again, these retain the original wood. And a lot of other original parts, and there are markings that are all through these. Everything except the barrel, the receiver, and the trigger group should be Chinese made. Put our handguard back in. Bring that lever around. Drop in our gas tube. Bring our lever down. Man, that lever's tight. Make sure it's in the right spot. The bolt carrier and the piston rod are very well done. I mean, just a very nice finish to it. Then, of course, with your bolt. And now we're going to put our bolt and bolt carrier back into place. Recoil spring and guide rod. And we're going to take our dust cover. Lock it in. Check. Good to go. Now they do ship with one magazine. They do ship in a nice hard plastic case, which is nice for this rifle. Again, guys, these are not inexpensive, but it has everything to do with the rarity of the Chinese parts. And being $1,199.99, or really $1,200, you know, you just got to decide, is this something that you're looking for? Because they will sell out. I mean, they will sell out because, again, they're just fairly rare and they're going to be hard to find. So guys, if you're just looking for an AK, you know, there's a lot of options out there. But if you really want something special, something that is going to increase in value, I think that the James River Armory Chinese Arsenal 66 Type 56 is an excellent choice. You know, yes, you can find AKs on Gunbroker for around $2 grand that are Chinese made. And you could probably find some lower quality as well, the Mac 90s. But I think for the quality of this, being a very well done US receiver and barrel, but yet made very close to the Chinese specs, I think this is a great piece to own. And I'm very excited to have it. If nothing else, just because of the history and what this stands for with gun owners. This really started the love affair with modern sporting rifles in America. And I really want to thank Ben at Classic Firearms for sending the AK for this test and evaluation. Guys, it was a lot of fun. Classic Firearms is a great source. And if you've not seen our warehouse tour of Classic Firearms, it is epic. I'll have it linked right here. Be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic. That was pretty much what people were looking for. Refurbished or re-oxidized, okay. Have a fixed shake, have our bolt, carrier assembly. With the general public, as far as